Hello and welcome. You're watching World Business Report. I am your host, Suyash Maheshwari. US markets saw modest gains in midweek trading as the S&P 500 continues to move towards record high levels. Now, the Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 0.3%, whereas S&P 500 and the Nasdaq Composite gained a little more than 0.1% on Wednesday. Meanwhile, the US dollar has hit a 5-month low as expectations mounted that key central banks such as the Federal Reserve will start to cut interest rates early next year. This Reuters report tells you more.
US stocks ticked up in low volume trading on Wednesday, with little market moving news to swing momentum one way or another as the S&P hovered just below bull market confirmation. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 0.3%. The S&P 500 and the Nasdaq Composite gained a bit more than 0.1%. Those modest gains nonetheless meant the Dow notched a new record closing high. The S&P 500 hovered less than 1% below a record closing high reached nearly 1 year ago. All three indexes remain on course for monthly, quarterly, and annual gains, but all bets could be off come January 1st. Michael Green is the chief strategist and portfolio manager for Simplify Asset Management. He told Reuters the recent rally in equities and its current highs may simply reflect investors wanting to put off profit taking to the new year.
Gut tells me that we're going to see positions reduced in many of the winners from 2023. And so naturally that should put some pressure on the NASDAQ. It really feels like January, February is setting up for some profit taking and the potential for at least some reversal in the move that we've seen from that October low.
Among the biggest movers on Wednesday, shares of Bit Digital jumped 18.6% following the Bitcoin miner's announcement that it plans to double its mining operations. Coherus Biosciences rose 23% after the U.S. Food and Drug Administration approved its drug delivery device for its infection-fighting treatment. And First Wave Biopharma shares surged 50% after the drug developer agreed to sell its inflammatory bowel disease drug to an undisclosed company.
The New York Times has sued OpenAI and Microsoft in a US court on Wednesday, alleging that the company's powerful AI models used millions of articles for training without permission. The Times is seeking damages as well as an order that the companies stop using its content and destroy data already harvested. Here's more. Now, the new British coin for 2024 have been unveiled by the Royal Mint. So, Winston Churchill, Buckingham Palace and the Royal National Lifeboat Institution are all commemorated in the new coins for 2024. Designed by artist Henry Gray, the coin features the architecture of Buckingham Palace front and center of the coin. The coins will become available for purchases from January 2 from the Royal Mint based in Wales. Listen to this Reuters report. Apple can now resume sales of its flagship smartwatches after a US appeals court on Wednesday paused a government commission's import ban on the devices imposed in a patent dispute over its medical monitoring technology. Here's more on this Reuters report.
Apple can, for now, resume sales of its flagship smartwatches after a U.S. appeals court on Wednesday paused a government commission's import ban on the devices. Apple had filed an emergency request asking the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit to halt an order from the U.S. International Trade Commission, which had ruled that Apple had infringed on medical technology firm Masimo's patents. Masimo filed a complaint accusing Apple of hiring away its employees, using its patented technology for reading blood oxygen levels, and incorporating that tech into the Apple Watch. Apple countersued, calling Masimo's legal actions a maneuver to clear a path for its own competing smartwatch. According to analysts, a final decision could cost either company millions of dollars and potentially force a settlement or some kind of technological workaround by Apple. Apple did not respond to an email seeking comment on the court decision, and Masimo declined to comment. Apple had already paused its sales of its Series 9 and Ultra 2 smartwatches in the United States last week, though the watches remain available from other retailers including Amazon, Best Buy, and Walmart. The ban did not affect the Apple Watch SE, a less expensive model without a pulse oximeter. Previously sold watches were also not affected by the ban.
Iraq's government condemned overnight airstrikes by the United States military on its territory as hostile acts after the Pentagon said it hit sites used by pro-Iran forces to target US forces. The US strikes killed one member of the Iraqi security forces and wounded 18 other people. Here's more on this Reuters report.
Debris and burnt-out vehicles litter the ground in the Iraqi city of Hilla, where the US military said it carried out airstrikes against Iran-aligned militants on Monday. At least one serviceman was killed, and 18 other people were wounded. Iraq's government condemned the strikes as a clear hostile act. Two Iraqi security sources said the strikes targeted the headquarters of Iraqi armed group Kataib Hezbollah in Babel province, south of Baghdad. Iraq's central government has limited control over some Iran-backed factions. Mourners later carried the coffin of the fighter during the funeral in Baghdad. One of the attendees, Sheikh Fadel Al-Ghazi, said the airstrikes were a serious crime and a blatant violation of the sovereignty of the Iraqi state. The US strikes were retaliation for an earlier drone attack on an Erbil airbase in Iraq that left a US soldier in critical condition and wounded 2 others. The back-and-forth clash was just the latest example of how the Israel-Hamas war is rippling across the Middle East. The US is Israel's closest ally, and the conflict has turned US troops at bases in Iraq and Syria into targets. There are 900 US troops in Syria and 2,500 in Iraq to help advise local forces preventing the resurgence of Islamic State, or ISIS. The US military has already come under attack at least 100 times in Iraq and Syria since the Israel-Hamas war began in October. The latest unrest comes less than a week after US Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin returned from a trip to the Middle East, focused on containing efforts by Iran-aligned groups to broaden the Israel-Hamas war.
After at least 20 people were killed in a rebel attack in western Burundi last week, the victims were finally laid to rest in a mass funeral. The incident took place when gunmen raided a village near the border with the Democratic Republic of Congo in an attack claimed by the Red Tabara rebel group. This Reuters report tells you more.
A mass funeral was held in Burundi on Tuesday for the victims of an attack by rebels. At least 20 people were killed last Friday when gunmen raided the village of Vagizo near the border with the Democratic Republic of Congo. According to officials, those killed included 12 children, 2 pregnant women, and a police officer. 9 others were wounded. This man lost his father. The Red Tabara rebel group has claimed responsibility for Friday's raid, claiming on the social media platform X to have killed 9 soldiers and 1 police officer. The group has been battling Burundi's government from bases in eastern Congo since 2015 and has previously attacked the international airport in Bujumbura. Tuesday's funeral was attended by Burundi's Minister of the Interior, Community Development and Public Security. He offered his condolences to all those affected.
Gunmen attacked remote villages over the weekend in north-central Nigeria's Plateau state, killing at least 140 people. The assailants targeted 17 communities on Saturday and Sunday, burning down most houses in the area. Take a look at this Reuters report.
Christian Emmanuel says he'd just been celebrating Christmas when the gunmen attacked.
They come around 10 o'clock. They start to shoot gun.
He lives in Nigeria's central Plateau state, where suspected nomadic herders rampaged through 15 villages at the weekend, according to officials, police and residents. At least 140 people have been reported killed, in what has been described as the bloodiest such violence since 2018.
I start to run. They run past me and they catch me. They shoot me. And I fall down, start to cry. Leave me. They say they're not going to leave me. And I start to beg. They just shoot me again.
Emmanuel says he pretended to be dead, and that the attackers then picked up his gun and left. It's not known what triggered the latest bloodshed. However, experts and politicians say climate change and expanding agriculture are contributing to the conflict. As northern Nigeria becomes drier and more prone to drought and floods, the mainly Muslim Fulani herders based there are forced further south. But there they come up against mostly Christian farmers who are expanding production to feed a rapidly growing population. That creates tensions over land, supporting a view that the conflict is about resources rather than any religious or ethnic differences between the groups. President Bola Tinubu described the latest attacks as primitive and cruel. He is yet to detail how he intends to tackle widespread insecurity across Nigeria, but said he had directed police to track down those responsible for the most recent bloodshed.
More than 1,000 South Korean military, policemen and emergency personnel joined air defense drills on Wednesday that simulated an attack by North Korea on Seoul. The exercise comes amid heightened tensions after the North tested an intercontinental ballistic missile and launched its first military spy satellite. Take a look.
These are rare defense drills in South Korea's capital on Wednesday. Over 1,000 military, police and emergency personnel joined the exercise that simulated an attack by North Korea on Seoul. It comes after the North tested an intercontinental ballistic missile and launched its first military spy satellite. The capital's mayor Oh Se-hoon cited Hamas' attack on October 7 through towns in Israel, which killed more than 1,200 people. He said it showed that superior military capabilities did not mean much if the enemy mounted a successful unexpected attack.
There was a big lesson for us when Israel's world-class advanced defense system helplessly buckled under a surprise attack by Hamas, armed with conventional artillery and primitive means.
Wednesday's drills simulated attacks on a water supply facility, telephone network stations and an underground communications and power cable corridor. Seoul is only 24 miles from the military border with the north. Oh added that it makes the capital particularly susceptible to an attack at any time. The drills came on a day that South Korea imposed new sanctions on 8 North Koreans linked to nuclear and missile programs. The neighbors have clashed at sea, and one of the South's islands has been bombed by the North. But there has been no direct attack on Seoul since the end of the Korean War in 1953.
And with that, let's take a short break, but stay tuned with us as we have many more stories from the world arena on the other side.
This was intended to be a terrorist spectacular without precedent.
The plan was to bomb 2 Air India passenger aircrafts simultaneously.
There was a loud explosion and the whole plane just vanished.
The police dropped the ball, the intelligence officers dropped the ball, and the politicians dropped the ball.
It was a conspiracy that destroyed my life. It destroyed 331 lives.
News is now content. Just stream it. Download the world's first news OTT, News9 Plus, ahead of the curve.
Welcome back. You're watching World Business Report here on News9. Now, severe thunderstorms battered eastern Australian states of Queensland and Victoria, killing at least 10 people over the Christmas holidays. Parts of Australia were reeling on Wendesday, with tens of thousands of properties still without power. Thunderstorms and strong winds have brought down over 1,000 power lines in parts of Queensland and left 85,000 people without electricity. Here's more in this Reuters report.
Parts of Australia were reeling on Wednesday after severe thunderstorms killed at least 10 people over the Christmas holidays. Winds battered the country's east, with tens of thousands of properties still without power. Wild weather lashed the states of Victoria, New South Wales and Queensland on December 25th and 26th. It brought large hailstones, torrential rains and strong winds, which blew off roofs and brought down trees. Local resident Paul Boyton is in Helensvale.
Oh, it was some of the strongest wind I've ever heard. So, yeah, it was pretty scary. The kids were freaking a bit. Yeah, they were pretty nervous. Yeah. Just inside, all you could hear is just all the banging and things breaking. Whole time, you know, that's more and more damage to the house and stuff. So, yeah.
3 men were killed after a yacht capsized near Green Island in Moreton Bay, authorities said. 2 people were killed by falling trees, and 2 women died after being swept away in flooded storm water drains, police said. The danger isn't over yet. Authorities warn fast-rising rivers and streams could burst their banks, inundating campgrounds, often crowded over the festive period. Queensland Premier Stephen Miles.
So it's the first time we've ever had a concrete power pole destroyed by a storm. That's pretty significant. That's unprecedented. Certainly the scenes I saw where you didn't just have a single power line down, you had a power line down between every pole.
Miles says the damage from the thunderstorms and Cyclone Jasper, which hit the state earlier this month, could be in the billions. Despite more rain predicted, Australia's Bureau of Meteorology expected the wild weather to ease later on Wednesday. Australia's December to February summer is under the influence of the El Niño phenomenon. It can cause weather extremes ranging from wildfires to cyclones and prolonged droughts.
Humanoid robots like NASA's Valkyrie, which stands at 6 feet 2 inches tall and weighs 300 pounds, are imposing figures that are poised to play a greater role on Earth and beyond in the coming years. Engineers believe with the right software, humanoid robots can function similarly to humans by using the same tools, equipments and methods of maneuvering itself. Take a look.
Meet Valkyrie, NASA's humanoid robot. Standing over 6 feet tall and weighing 300 pounds, she cuts an imposing figure. She is designed to operate in challenging environments, such as areas hit by natural disasters. But she could also one day operate in space.
So we're not trying to replace human crews, we're really just trying to take the dull, dirty and dangerous work off their plates.
Sean Azimi is the dexterous robotics team leader at NASA. He said humanoid robots which resemble humans could potentially handle risky tasks in space, so astronauts can prioritize exploration and discovery. With the right software, he says a humanoid robot could use the same tools and equipment as humans. For instance, robots could be tasked with cleaning solar panels or inspecting malfunctioning equipment outside the spacecraft.
In particular, with a humanoid robot, it's very intuitive to be able to directly drive the arms and move the head, and that's what we're going to see with Valkyrie today. But when we're thinking ahead to operations from Earth, we will be operating with a much higher degree of autonomy, where the human operator on Earth will be more strategically giving the robot tasks, and the robot would be responsible for completing those tasks autonomously.
Back on Earth, NASA has partnered with robotic company Apptronik, which is based in Texas. It wants to learn how Apptronik's earthly robots could benefit future robots destined for space.
They want to see a viable system on Earth before we take these systems into space, into Mars, onto the moon.
Nick Payne is the Chief Technology Officer of the firm, which has been developing Apollo, a humanoid robot whose earthly task will include working in warehouses and manufacturing plants. It is being developed to move packages and stack pallets. The company plans to start providing the humanoid robots to companies in early 2025. Payne says Apollo possesses clear advantages over its human counterparts, particularly endurance.
We're targeting having this system online 22 hours a day. And so there's multiple ways to do that. You can have a kind of trickle charge if you want to have a tether on the robot. Alternatively, this does have a swappable battery, so you can work for 4 hours, swap the battery, and then keep going in a very quick duration. So we're looking at kind of keeping the system online for the most amount of time that we can.
Robots like Apollo are designed with modularity in mind to be able to adapt to many applications, and that's where NASA's really trying to get that insight to see what are the key gaps where we would need to invest in the future to bring a terrestrial system into the space environment and certified for operating in space.
South Korean actor Lee Sun-yoo, best known for his Oscar-winning role in film called Parasite, was found dead. According to reports, the actor was discovered inside a vehicle parked in central Seoul. 48-year-old Lee had been under investigation over illegal drug use allegations amid an ongoing government crackdown on drugs. Listen in.
South Korean actor Lee Sun-gyun of the Oscar-winning film Parasite was found dead on Wednesday, according to local media. A source told Reuters authorities found the 48-year-old during a search for him following a report that he had gone missing. Citing police, South Korea's Yonhap news agency earlier said that Lee was found in a car at a park in Seoul. It said his manager had called the police to report that Lee had left home and left what appeared to be a suicide note. Lee had been under investigation over illegal drug use allegations amid a government crackdown. South Korea has tough drug laws, and police had questioned Lee 3 times, including for 19 hours over the weekend. The actor had said he was tricked into taking drugs by a bar hostess, who then tried to blackmail him, according to Yonhap. Born in 1975, Lee starred as the head of a wealthy household in Parasite, which won 4 Academy Awards in 2020. He also played leading roles in some South Korean movies, as well as in the first Korean-language Apple TV Plus original series, a sci-fi thriller released in 2021.
Grammy-winning Colombian singer Shakira, one of the world's top-selling musicians, has been immortalized in her famous belly dancing pose in a giant bronze statue in her home city of Barranquilla. The city's mayor unveiled the 6.5-meter sculpture in a park along with the banks of Magdalena River. Shakira, who lives in Miami, said that she was honored by the statue and that Barranquilla will always be her home. Listen in. That's all we have in this edition of World Business Report. This is Suyash Maheshwari signing off.
Since the last 2 years, Khalistani terror groups are threatening Indian diplomats in Canada, US, UK and Australia. Investigations of these threats led us to the first ever abduction and killing of an Indian diplomat, Ravindra Matre, in UK's Birmingham in 1984. Our months-long investigation finally led us to the murderer of Ravindra Matre, who has been hiding in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir for the last 40 years. Watch our exclusive documentary, Murder of an Indian Diplomat, where we reveal the man who killed Ravindra Matre.
Stop searching, start streaming. Download the world's first news OTT, News9 Plus, ahead of the curve.